Hello, hello, hello. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the 5, 8.5, your midweek break. I'm Nadine Smith, alongside not Lisa Graves, but the one and only Greg Olear, who's sitting in as we do what we always do on Wednesdays, 5 stories, 8-ish minutes, and a chance to refuel. Hopefully, we are slowing things down for you, letting you sip, reflect, and remember, most of all, you are not alone. And thank you, Greg. I'm glad I'm not alone tonight. Lisa wasn't able to join, and you have jumped in, and I appreciate.
It's my pleasure as always. I always forget, and I never am in a position to say how good that intro is. So, shout out to Chunk again and to Matt Fossa for
Yes.
the music.
Well,
It's really tremendous.
I get lost in it. I just start rocking out to it, and then I'm like, oh, the show. So,
I know. Yeah,
and
it's shorter too. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yes, ours is shorter, but that. Yeah, so I've lulled myself into a false sense that I can do the whole dance. But there's an image in that intro that for the folks on watching us right now, it's just a brief moment, and I bet most people don't even know what the picture is, but it is Jesse Jackson kind of cradling my head with his hand, and his other arm is in a sling. And one day, well, and I'll just tell you very quickly, I was one of the co-chairs for the March on Washington back in 1993, and I was in charge of communications, and he had led the kickoff stage, in an act of solidarity, spoken on the kickoff stage. Well, the crowd began to swell, and eventually 1 million people are filling, the monument, the reflecting pool, all that area. And he comes up to one of the organizers and says, I want to speak from the main stage. And nobody wants to tell Jesse Jackson no. And so eventually they send him to me. And one thing that's easy to forget, he's not just a sort of an imposing political figure, but he's also a very large man.
He's very tall. I stood next to him once.
Yeah,
so 6'3" or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So so it's my job at 20-something to go tell him that he can't take the stage. But instead, what I said was I brought the clipboard that had everybody's name on it that had been selected. And I said, every moment of the main stage has been, someone has been selected to speak. So if you want to look at this list and decide who you should replace, let me know.
Oh, that's good.
Right? So he stood there for just a moment, and then his good arm, because the other one was in a sling, shot out, and he pulled my head toward him. And in that moment, I thought, I'm about to have my neck broken by a very irate Jesse Jackson. But instead, he gives me a hug, and he said, nicely done. So that's the moment.
He's right.
And it was years before I realized that moment had even been captured, because it had, somebody did a retrospective on the march. And I was like, oh my gosh, somebody captured the moment I thought I was going to die. But there it is. That's the story behind the.
That's a great story.
How are you
doing? Good night, everybody. How's a good
night?
I hurt my arm, and I heard it doing something. I heard it sleeping apparently, and so I have. That's why I'm in this chair. I have to if I'm fidgeting around more than normal and I'm leaning like this, it's because my arm hurts. So, but other than that, I'm good.
Yeah.
Other than that,
I begged you to take medicine just for the entertainment value of watching it.
I'm going to wait.
Slowly succumb, but
I'm going to have a little bit of this though, because this it is a muscle relaxant.
Can I just say that glass is the most, for somebody who spoke at the No Kings rally, that looks like you stole it directly from from Napoleon's court.
Actually, I broke into the Louvre and stole it along with. Oh,
sure you were.
I shouldn't have said. Damn.
Somebody wrote, "Dear Louvre burglars, how much could we pay you to get the Epstein files?" So, all right. Well, where to start? Speaking of Epstein files, there's been a lot of news of late around pardons. George Santos, the rest of his sentence has been commuted. He is not being legally required to provide any restitution whatsoever. And this is happening against a backdrop where people are just speaking openly about, paying money to get access to Trump, to get pardons and commutations and this kind of thing. But it's also happening at a moment where trial balloons about pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell have been floating
for a while now.
It's like they keep testing the fence. They get a little shocked here. Okay, the strong here, and they just keep pressing against that fence to see if they can find the right talking point to make that okay. And they've deployed their YouTubers and podcasters to begin to float this idea that, Epstein was a really, really bad guy. And I think our anger at him caused us to kind of go on a witch hunt and sort of scoop up anyone near him, despite the fact that we have tons of victims that are very clear. She wasn't simply, an administrator of his sex trafficking, but an active participant, and as evil and despicable as him.
Worse, according to Virginia Giuffre. Worse.
Exactly. And now comes news that Diddy, who's been convicted and I think is facing 4 years in prison, TMZ put out word that they had reliable sources that tell them that Trump is preparing to free him as well. Now, once the word got out, once TMZ put that out, folks in the White House began to distance themselves. And then TMZ did something that too few media outlets have done. They were not cowed by that and simply said, we stand by our story. So
where are we?
Yes. Well, the
TMZ, the paragon of journalistic integrity. Exactly. What is happening?
Well, who was the other one? Everybody turned in their Pentagon badges, right? Except, was it Newsmax?
And no, then I think it was One America News Network.
Okay. And then I think a day later they did. One of them, Newsmax or One America. Yeah. So there's some sense that a world in which George Santos, Sean Diddy Combs, and Ghislaine Maxwell are all, either have been or being considered for pardon or commutation. This is a moment where people are beginning to push back, even within Trump's own circle. But yeah, it's a pretty grotesque thing to witness.
I'm glad that you brought up the pardons, Nadine, because I wrote a chapter in Rough Beast about this, because it's one of the things that Trump did during the first term that was pretty objectively awful. And I think that any human with any sort of moral compass, if they sat down and understood who he pardoned and why in that first term, would be appalled. I mean, you'd get 95%. And if you didn't give the names of who it was, if it was in a movie or something, it would be closer to 100%. Including this guy, Ken Kurson, who used to be the editor of the Observer. And he was like good friends with Giuliani and good friends with Jared Kushner, two people, by the way, who were in charge of the pardon process at the end. And Trump pardoned him before there was even a trial. And he was indicted for stalking and harassment and that kind of thing. I think of his ex. And, so they didn't even get a trial. They didn't even get the satisfaction of that. It was just basically Trump being like, I don't care what you did. You're good. It's all cool. And that's not how it should be anywhere. Forget about the United States. It shouldn't happen like that anywhere. But if Diddy gets out, people are going to die, I think. I think that's probably pretty clear. The people that testified against him are going to be in grave danger. Ghislaine will get on her submarine. We'll never see her again. George Santos, I think letting him out before Halloween, probably a good move. I think I'd like to see what he's going to dress up as this year,
What is the release of the files? I don't, whatever the drag name is. But yeah, you know, I mean, I think for some people, this is a shocking, deconstruction of the myth that the justice system is built, no one is above the law. And for others, it is, 'twas ever thus. And uh, we need to just start acknowledging that there's two tiers in this justice system, arguably three. Um,
Yeah.
really light punishments, extraordinarily excessive punishments for the same crimes, and the people who are untouchable. And the other part of it is this goes back to pardons, but I think Democrats are demanding that Homeland Security reveal whether or not they've hired January 6th traitors who've been pardoned. To
Spoiler
be
alert. Yes.
right.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've seen
Mm.
comparisons of masked ICE folks and the folks during January 6th. So yes, but this happens at a time when we are also seeing, again, little signs of pushback after the release of not one, but two racist chats involving young Republicans. And I feel like we've got to stop calling them young Republicans because J.D. Vance wants us to be thinking of, I don't know, toddlers wandering around a playground testing out new words that they heard in rap music, not
Nazi
grown men.
toddlers.
Yeah.
Nazi toddlers. Yeah.
Yeah, Nazi toddlers. And, rather, to have J.D. Vance describing them as children when some of these young Republicans are older than him is just particularly ridiculous. So
Yes.
you had the two leaks of racist chats in which there was more fire aimed at the releaser of the chats than the people, creating these racist, anti-Semitic, hateful chats. And then, but you contrast that with what is it, Ingracia? Paul Ingracia is nominated to head a key federal ethics and whistleblower office. And he ended up withdrawing his nomination after texts emerged, which he referred to having a Nazi streak, right? Which,
and let me tell you, on the topic of Paul, who's 30 years old, by the way, and he's supposed to be in charge of ethics, there was a story in Politico that reported that he went on a business trip with a female colleague and allegedly had it so that her hotel room was canceled so that she had to stay in his room. And there's a lot of evidence that really happened and that he actually was the one who canceled the room and made it happen. She reported it, apparently, again, per Politico. There was, she immediately said stuff. She felt like she was being put in this position, But if that's true, and, I believe the women who say it was true and told Politico it was true, that's about the scummiest fucking thing you can do. I mean, that's so bad. It's so bad. This guy should not be around humans ever. I mean, he should be put on an island by himself if he's going to behave that way. That's just horrifying.
I think I know what island he'd pick. But to your point, my God, I if ever there was a metaphor for right-wing attitudes about men and women,
yeah.
so much of the so-called right-wing manosphere is women should have no vote, no voice, no choice. Incels calling themselves involuntarily celibate instead of just repulsive creeps who haven't learned basic skills. But no, they want the metaphor of trapping a woman in a situation where she has no choice but to put herself in proximity of you is kind of the that's the cheat code.
And it's also I can see him being, hey guys, look what I did. It's juvenile and stupid. Yeah. But it's also, it's basic. It's very rapey. And that's a through line with all these guys. Trump's guys They're all like that. They're all have issues with, not all, but most of them have issues with that. As if that's, if you have that on your resume, it pushes you to the front of the line.
Do you remember this story? And I can't remember, if anyone can put it in the chat. And by the way, if you're new and you haven't subscribed, just go ahead and take a second, go over there, click subscribe, and you know how to do that. But okay, there was this story about I want to say it was either Reddit or 4chan, one of these sort of dark web areas. But basically, it was men coaching each other on how to gaslight, psychologically manipulate, not strangers, but wives, sisters, mothers, like the most sort of diabolical mind games. Does this ring a bell?
I mean, it's all part of that red pill culture thing. I think that was, or it's adjacent to that, which looks to have kind of a, which looks at like it's a game, and that the other people are just not human, not people that have feelings. It's just part of the game. It's like a video game in which, say, you were encouraged in order to get prizes that you had to call up old people and scam them or win points. Like if there was a game like that.
If there was such an awful game.
And they're taught in that subculture to value cleverness around women as if it's conquest and all this kind of stuff, which again, Paul Ingratius probably is familiar with that world, I would guess. And that's something that definitely would come out of that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I bet that there's a whole, thread on how to trap your female coworkers in situations which cause them to rely on you for housing, for a hotel room, for a ride after a party, all of those things. I guarantee that there's, if we were able to grab his browser history, we'd find the mother lode of this kind of disgusting behavior. All right. I'm so horrified. I've repelled myself.
Even in the context of that group of MAGA people, he's particularly egregious.
Yeah,
I think so.
Well, in Florida, we have a Republican congressman named Corey Mills, who has a restraining order from a former Miss America, his former girlfriend, that involves, posting, what do you call it? When you post sex tapes as retaliation.
Revenge.
Yeah, that kind of. So I don't want to say precisely that's what it is, but, it's kind of like, here's a sitting congressman with having to go to court. This woman has produced all of this information about him threatening her. But in this context, in the current scenario, it hardly even pings the needle even a little bit.
There was the guy in Uvalde too that's involved in a very, very disturbing situation where.
Oh, I haven't heard of this one.
Let's table it. We've
it's a little too horrible. Okay, yeah.
And also, I don't know enough about it yet, and I don't want to speak out of turn. But it looks like something that's not good happening.
All right, don't Google it quite yet. Don't Google it. Don't go down that awful rabbit hole. We want to take you down a completely different rabbit hole.
Fun rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Fun rabbit hole. I've been hitting the timer, by the way. You're doing a very good job coming in right before 8 minutes. Yeah.
It's just an inner knowing, a sensing.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Speaking of people behaving badly, in North Carolina, the Republican-controlled legislature approved a map to secure an additional U.S. House seat for Republicans, and this thereby reducing the chances of a Democratic Black incumbent. And this is, of course, part of this wider trend. Republicans have been pushing this mid-cycle redistricting outside of the standard post-census cycle. And essentially, they are rigging the elections. It's not the people choosing their representative, it's the representative choosing their voters. And you know, and it's not new. You and I both interviewed
Dave
Robert
Daly.
Fiesler.
Oh,
Who,
Fiesler. Yeah.
yeah,
Fiesler
yeah,
too. Yeah.
and the author of American Scare. And one of the things he talks about was how in Florida, as people began to, move to the South, they wanted to control power and they wanted to make sure uh, Black civil rights leaders did not hold sway in calling for integration. They wanted to make sure liberal Northerners who were white, who were bringing their Northern ideas, could not hold sway. And so all of the things they did to completely disenfranchise the rapidly growing southern part of the state is absolutely a microcosm. They know that the votes are slipping away. They know, we'll talk later about some polling that shows just how much the Republicans are sort of hemorrhaging support. And so they are out here doing everything they can to rig the game.
Yeah.
So.
Florida, in his book, American Scare, he sort of suggests that this is like it's a template. It's basically a roadmap. Like, this is how we did it in Florida. Therefore, this is the position that guys should do. And Dave Daly, who's, really knows a lot about election stuff and has written an awful lot about it, came on our show right around the time that Gavin Newsom was trolling Trump about redistricting in California, which obviously now but he was saying, we can't make this a thing, because if they do it in California, then the red states will start doing it and we will lose that battle. And that appears to be what's happening now. So because there's a lot more states left to go. And I'm very worried about the midterms, not because I think that the incumbent party will not get a lot of votes, because I think that Trump is very unpopular and will be even more so after another year of deprivation and whatever else is unleashed here.
Right.
I just don't think that it's going to be on the up and up, and not because of some conspiratorial thing, because of gerrymandering stuff they're announcing that they're doing. Gerrymandering, we change this law, we purge we make it so that we throw people off the rolls. We don't want you to be able to vote mail in at all. You have to go there on the day of. And then he's going to send out the army to there's a lot of levers that he can pull that are not, plot lines from Scandal. Okay. In order to tilt the scales in his favor. And it's a mistake to wait 13 months and not do anything to try to prevent that from happening, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake to think that they will not pull out all the stops. I think rational people are so allergic to sounding like conspiracy theorists that that we get stuck in a normalcy bias that tells us, it'll functionally be mostly the same with some unfortunate barriers that are overcomable, rather than what we've been watching cycle after cycle. They have in North Carolina, that's the place where the courts found that they basically said the outcome we want is fewer Black and brown people voting, and we want it designed in a way that packs Democratic districts and makes more districts, plus X amount Republican. I mean, they just simply reverse engineered what they wanted, and that's what they got. And the courts were like, "Yeah, we are clear that that's what you did." And then I believe the Supreme Court said, "Yeah, that's fine."
Well, that's because the Supreme Court was like, "Wow, we're not the only ones that reverse engineer stuff." You go.
Innovation.
Next time try citing a decree from the Lord Magistrate Coke from the 16th century Britain, and then we'll really have something that you guys can use. It's when you fight Nazis, you fight on every available front or you lose. That's just how it is. So we cannot cede any ground to these people. We just can't. It's, and I've had a lot of discussion and pushback because of the piece that I wrote yesterday, but it's like, I think of it like global warming. Now, it may be that global warming is not as bad as some of the alarmist scientists think. And we get there and it's, instead of 2 degrees, it'll only be 1.72 or something. And so we have more time than maybe they're extrapolating. And I'm like, yeah. But if they're right, we're just fucked. So we have to prepare for and think about it as if they're going to be right. And it's the same thing. We can't prepare. We can't depend on, it'll all work out in the end to come through, because it's just, that's not a strategy.
Yeah.
It's just,
No, that is absolutely the normalcy bias. It makes us feel like we are in control in circumstances that are hurtling wildly out of control. But, a thing cannot be dealt with unless it can be looked at. And right now, Americans have to be paying attention to the map rigging. The other thing that Robert Fiesler talks about in his book, it's not simply that they did it to maintain their seats. It was an absolute plunder economy in Florida.
Right.
It was, the Charlie Johns, who ran the Johns Committee that he wrote about, was also the guy who sold ice at the football games, the all-white football games, I mean, you want to talk about license to print money. Selling ice in pre-air conditioning Florida was pretty much as good as it gets. And
just to be clear, ice in glasses, not ice.
Yeah, not fascist and mask, ice in glasses. Yeah. So, and so I would say that the same things are at play here. Wherever you see map rigging and this level of corruption or these kinds of manipulations, I guarantee just below the surface you will find a plunder economy. We certainly see it in Florida with sweetheart deals, 4 acres of land, I think for $83 million that DeSantis, got for his buddy, over $300 million in unexamined contracts for so-called alligator Alcatraz concentration camps. All of these things happen whenever you begin to see these people doing everything in their power to maintain power, no matter how extreme. But you mentioned, speaking of, making sure our eyes are wide open and we consider all options.
2 seconds left. 2 seconds left. You had. Well done. Okay.
You have been quite busy fashioning a response to all of the corruption that we've been talking about, the pardons, the map rigging, the general corruption and grifting and illegalities of this administration. Let's talk about Liz 48.
Okay, so what this is I have been racking my brain trying to think of how do we get rid of these guys, because there is no mechanism to get rid of all of them. There's only a mechanism to get rid of the president, and you have to impeach him one by. It's complicated. It's just even if Trump, the Big Mac gets him, we still have President Vance, and he'll probably keep all these cabinet people in there, and everything will be just as horrifying. Maybe not quite as stupid, but just as horrifying. So it doesn't solve the problem that we have. Joyous a day that it would not solve the problem. And I thought, what is the solution? We can't arrest them because there's no mechanism for that either. The federal government is run by Pam Bondi, who basically was pre-bribed by Donald Trump. She's never going to use the DOJ to go after actual criminals. And what I mean by pre-bribed is he gave her shares in his company, which she later sold between $1 and $5 million.
Yeah.
So that is not nothing. And I'm like, what are we going to do here? What are we going to do? Can the states come together and maybe like New York State can indict somebody for money crimes or something like that? And how would that work? Like I put on social media a couple of weeks ago, why can't the state of Illinois just arrest Stephen Miller for the ICE raids? Just, go to DC, throw him in a van like ICE does, bring him to Illinois to face trial, put him in a cell and leave him there, and see what happens. They're never going to do this. Everybody's on TV. They're saying the right things. Nobody's doing stuff like that. And that's the kind of outside of the box thinking I think that we need. So my plan is called Liz 48 because it goes like this. The first step is you have to get rid of Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House. Okay. I think Mike Johnson might even be the least popular politician in the galaxy right now. He's clearly shutting down the government to protect pedophile. Everybody knows it, including people in his own party. And he just lies about it egregiously. I made this joke once today, but I'll make it again. It's like the Ohtani game of lying. He's so good at it. It's like, wow, I've never seen that level of lying before, even among the liars. It's really something. I don't think people like him. And they have 218, which is what you need for the seat. We have 200, I think 14 or 15. It would take 4 or 5 defections, and we have to hold the people we have to be able to get rid of him. That's the first step. The second step is we have to install someone as Speaker of the House that isn't currently in the House, because we have to cut the line of succession. That's the key part of the plan. If you look at the presidential line of succession, it goes president, vice president, Speaker of the House, and then all of Trump's cabinet members, which if you did a shot for every one that you were opposed to, you would be dead by the time you got to the end of the list. Just a horrible, horrible list of people. So that can't happen. We have to, jump the line. Like you're in Florida, like at Disney World, you buy the passes, you cut the line. So I propose Liz Cheney because she's a Republican, and I think therefore Republicans have some hope of voting for her. But she's also clearly broken with the party, or with the MAGA part of the party. She's clearly on our side in terms of democracy, national security, rule of law, first principles, core principles of the country. So that's why I picked her. People gave me a hard time about it, like, well, I'd never have Liz Cheney. I'm like, okay, that's great. You don't like Liz Cheney. Good. That's a real hot take. Propose someone else, or get the fuck off my timeline. That's what I've been saying. And I'm not usually rude like that, but we don't need no, we need yes. So if you're gonna come at my idea, think of a better one. Anyway, and then it goes from there. She calls for a vote on impeachment. The House votes to impeach, which I think it actually would at this point. I think there's enough with Massey and Green. I think there are enough votes to have that go to the Senate. Then the hard part is the Senate, getting the senators in the Senate to finally get rid of this guy, and Vance. And maybe to convince Vance that resigning would be better than going down the tubes at, however, what is he, 40 years old, for the rest of his life, being tied to this orange fart-stained albatross. Maybe he'd be better just Spiro Agnew and get his ass out of there.
You said tubes and tied in the same sentence, but go on.
What did I say?
You said down the tubes. He doesn't want to be tied.
Oh, that's Freudian slip. I'm so sorry, JD. I don't want to offend your sensibilities.
That's right.
Maybe we should explain to the Republicans what that is. No, they might not know. So, and I get it. That's hard. But what happens then is Trump is gone, Vance is gone, Liz Cheney is the president. She fires all of the cabinet members. She gets rid of Kash Patel. She cleans house. And really, it's going to take the entire rest of the term for somebody like her just to clean up the mess. Literally the mess at the freaking White House, by the way, which is, I know, our next topic. But so anyway, that's the plan. I know it's flawed. I know it's like, it's never going to happen. Yeah, I know. I never thought that that we would allow a demolition team to come to the White House and start demolishing it. But guess what? It's happening. I didn't think that ICE was going to be in the streets kidnapping people, but it's happening. He's going to declare the Insurrection Act, and that's going to be ball game. So maybe we need to, I don't know, do something before then. I don't know. That's the plan. What do you think?
That's the plan. Well, I don't know when I switched timelines in which we're invoking Marjorie Taylor Greene, Massey, and Liz Cheney as the last great hope. Like if this was a Star Wars episode.
TMZ, man. TMZ, journalistic integrity.
It wouldn't be Princess Leia's hologram. It would be like Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Excuse me.
Liz Cheney.
If Dick Cheney is Darth Vader.
But yeah, somebody was mentioning that, she got her wake up call. What is it? I mean, obviously there are no good roads. And the question is, which one will we pursue?
Which one will we agree on?
I
mean, it doesn't even matter. It's just like, find somebody. It doesn't even matter who it is. It just has to be somebody that isn't an active criminal. Would be nice.
Yeah. I mean, in that criteria, I don't know anybody. I can't think of somebody who is better than Liz Cheney. I mean, the never Trumpers like Steve Schmidt, they they have not held on, to their base in the
Mm-hmm.
way that there are still people who think of Liz Cheney as a serious politician. And but yeah, the expanding of the Supreme Court, like I think you gotta just sort of stop clinging to old mythologies about,
Yeah.
you know, guardrails in America, and frankly the mythology in many ways what we are collectively experiencing, the militarization of police, the weaponization of the judicial system, all of these things that are happening were have always been happening, but to the most marginalized and the least seen and the most politically, um, disenfranchised. And the fact that it's happening to so many people in broad daylight and visible now to everyone is provoking. It makes me think of HIV. It makes me think of when the AIDS
Mm,
epidemic hit, because suddenly the closet was no longer a protection. It
yeah.
it it pulled people out of the closet from every aspect of life. The idea that we were everywhere was a slogan, but AIDS meant that suddenly people understood, yeah, Rock Hudson, yes, your favorite teacher, your doctor, your neighbor, your best friend, all of these people were suddenly visible. And so, and what, and they had power in a system that allowed them to hide. And they began to use that power. ACT UP was, so much driven by white men in power who were suddenly bearing the brunt of a president and a country indifferent to the suffering and the death, and in fact, laughing about it.
Yeah.
And they summoned the outrage that came from not being accustomed to being treated that way. And I think there was a visual, I think it was today or from yesterday, of a woman standing in front of a tank in New York City. Did you see this picture? And she's flipping out, the
Oh
barrel
yeah,
is,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and she's flipping the tank off. And um, I mean, it's just such a shocking scene. But I guarantee, just as 6 years ago, if you had told me that there would be a plan that relied on Liz Cheney, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Massey, and that New Yorkers would be standing facing down tanks in the street, it would have been an unfathomable. I couldn't have wrapped my brain around the concept of it being even a remote possibility. And so there is a quote, and I hope someone can help me find this, because I fear I'm quoting a fascist. But the
Uh-oh.
quote is roughly this: "The future belongs to those who have a strong opinion about how it should turn out." And I think that right now we are struggling with, um, MAGA has a strong opinion about how the world ought to turn out. They've put that opinion into the form of Project 2025. And Democrats have a general notion of how the world ought to turn out. And they have focus group tested it and squeezed it through, cheesecloth to find the lowest common denominator, least offensive way of expressing it, um, with significant exceptions. That is not, I will paint with a broad brush, but not one that quite that broad. But yeah, so I think the problem isn't this idea. The problem is there should be, 20 different versions of how we're going to um, reverse the complete authoritarian capture of our
Yeah.
courts, our economic systems, of the media, all of these things. They have executed an attack on every single um, guidepost and guardrail.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. I mean, it's the thing about the AIDS thing is so horrible. I just upsets me so much on a visceral level when I hear about like that level of just evil injustice. It just bothers me. And and I'm lucky that I have not faced it in my life, really. So but it shouldn't exist. And I think one of the things that a functional good society and a good civilization, and certainly a good government should be doing, is making sure that it doesn't exist, and to try to, really make it so that the law is equal. The law can be merciful, but it has to be, you can't have just people getting away with it because, they worked for Jared Kushner once. That's not, especially crimes like that. Real crimes where in danger. The people that, put him away are in danger now. And Trump didn't think about that at all when he was making that decision. It's,
I mean, wouldn't have cared. That probably
no,
to him, that's
he doesn't care. He doesn't care. Just,
that's a feature, not a bug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just sign it in that lineup of KKK guys that is his signature, and move along. It's just,
Well, yes. So contemplating the unthinkable in order to build strategies that can actually resist what is unfolding. I think that's what I hope everyone has as a takeaway. And speaking of that which seems unthinkable but is absolutely happening, despite the shutdown, we see heavy equipment on the lawn of the White House and the destruction of the East Wing to make room for the gaudy awfulness that is what Trump wants to be his legacy. A ballroom that is so large, I think it actually eclipses the size of the existing White House.
Yes, I believe you're right. Yeah.
So again, you ask yourself, could you have imagined just 6 years ago that you would see demolition crews tearing apart the White House? Boy, the metaphors are just abounding tonight.
Oh God, yeah. Did you see? Wait, I saw this on somebody put this on Twitter. Let me see if I can grab it real quick because it's worth showing everybody that that hasn't seen it yet. I have to find my profile. I think I can find it quickly, and if I can't, we won't bother with it.
Okay. And, I can vamp. I appreciate that people are finding the quotes that have to do with people having a strong vision of the future.
Oh, who is the quote?
Well, there are versions of it that I think I'm just going to attribute it to both Eleanor Roosevelt and to Malcolm X.
Those aren't fascists. Those are cool people.
Right. Well, I don't think this is quite the one, but it's one of those ideas, like a joke that a lot of comedians come to on their own. But the Malcolm X version is, the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. That's close. It's in the ballpark. And then the Eleanor Roosevelt one. Where did I see that? I think it was in a similar vein. Oh, it was like the future belongs to those who dare dream it. So maybe that was a little more closer to what I was going for. Yeah. Did you find what you were looking for?
Yep, here it is.
Beautiful. Ooh. Oh gosh. Oh my gosh.
This is from Joel Montfort on Twitter, so that's where I got it from. But this is such a powerful image.
I think.
That's it. We don't need any more words than that. That says all we need to say, honestly. But he wants to put himself on the money too, and all this.
He has. Yeah, that's the only way I think he should end up on the money, is with that hideous image. I do want to say this. I know we're about to talk about. I mean, we're in the midst of talking about the hateful, just the ugliness, and again the metaphor of Trump destroying the White House, brick by brick. But the tension that I hold around the Never Trumpers is, I'm a very pragmatic person. We have a math problem in America. We have to deal with it. But I also know that the monster that we're dealing with was leashed and fed by hand by all of them, because it was a useful monster as long as they felt like the leash was in their hand.
Yep.
And what we're dealing with right now is the monster that served their purposes, that they thought they could kind of control and measure and only have it come out and attack who they needed it to attack, finally got big enough to chew through the leash and turn on its master. And
Yeah.
so,
Well put. Well put.
and so to put them in the position that they, that is based on rhetoric now, I wonder what happens. Is Liz Cheney actually chastened by having looked the monster in its face? Or would the ascent leave her in a position of believing, it took a while, but it's back where I need it to be? Anyway.
Only one way to find out,
Well, listen, there's no downside to the risk really at this moment.
No.
So that's not me suggesting a veto, but it's more me hoping that they are internalizing that lesson as well in this moment. But yeah, that's a pretty haunting image of destruction. There was also, Trump is getting boring now. I mean, say what you want. He's usually not boring, but he is going to this well way too often. So a reporter today, asked him, because he swore that the ballroom would not mess with the integrity of the building. Nothing would be touched. This would be an expansion. Haven't you ever seen a home expansion? You leave the main building and this would be, etc. And so a reporter asked him, hey, wait a second. You said that, and now you've destroyed the East Wing. And he used this sort of, I think we've been the most transparent. We've been more transparent than anyone. Only a third tier reporter wouldn't be able to see, wouldn't have bothered to read our plans. Anyone, and it's like this same, it's like just going to the same well over and over and over again. It was kind of clever the first time, and if you didn't hate him, it might've been a little funny the second time, but now it's just like, is that all there is? Is that all you got? But what
it is transparent.
Well, the
knocking the wall down. We can see right into the wall, Nadine.
Right. It makes you wonder what he was throwing out of that garbage bag.
Oh yeah.
But
I forgot about that.
But yeah. But I do want to say a reporter actually asking him a question that they knew would get him upset is, it's like a little bit of oxygen in the room, regardless. And we take what we can get. We take what we can get. Do you think that once everything, once MAGA is defeated, that I just have this idea for a fundraiser, that once Trump is gone and Vance is, in Argentina or wherever Nazis flee, that a massive fundraiser would be that people pay for the privilege of taking apart the ballroom brick by brick.
Oh, that's a great idea. I love that idea.
I would bid on that.
Yeah, this is what and we're going to get into this in the half, but I gave a No King speech on Saturday, and I was in Kingston, New York, which is the first capital of the state, right? Kingston is almost an anagram of No Kings, almost. Very close.
Yes.
It's No Kings, T, where T is Trump. So,
I like it. Okay, there you go.
But that's
a t-shirt right there. Go make some money. That's a t-shirt.
That's a t-shirt. This is where George Clinton, not that one, was sworn in as the first governor of New York and gave a rousing speech, right? And the thing about George Clinton that I read about is that he was friends with George Washington and was a big, important Revolutionary War general. But one thing he loved to do is he loved to take the Tories' money and seize all their assets and then sell them off and use the money for the people. And that's the kind of energy that we need after this is over.
Yes.
We need that energy. We need George Clinton energy. We have a George Clinton soundtrack to play in the background while we cultivate the energy. But that's what we need to be doing. As fun as it would be for us to give money to demolish the ballroom, I'd rather just take the money from them. There's a lot of money. Elon Musk's worth a lot of money. So Take
At least for
his.
now. At
Mhm.
least for now.
Get those Louvre thieves over here. We need some. Pardon them and let them go to work on the. No.
Yeah. Well, just but before we go, we always, having taken you through all of the tough stuff, we end with a segment that we call the glass half full. So obviously not to ignore what's broken, but to remind ourselves of what is still bold and still possible. And sometimes it's a story and sometimes it's a moment, but we hope that it is something that fills the cup even just a little bit. And today, our story, our glass half full, when we go ahead and do it in advance, we lift our glass to the No Kings rally,
Yeah.
the largest political protest in U.S. history. Bravo, bravo. I know you spoke at the Kingston rally. Eager to hear what it was like for you there. Turns out come out with pride was the same day, a block or two away from the No Kings rally. So I got to go to both. I got to get my picture taken with the frogs, the Give Me Liberty frogs.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And I think last week I was talking about the concept of tactical frivolity and how you respond to their naked aggression and acts of intimidation by with mockery, with body language that says we're not afraid of you. In fact, you think we're ridiculous, we think you're ridiculous, and also sweaty. You know, it's like I was saying to somebody, it's like responding to somebody who's in your face, barking at you, growling at you, trying to get you to back down, and you just will reach over and go boop to their nose. So, so, so there was a lot of tactical frivolity, and and there's an energy there that is undeniable. Not just at the No Kings rally, which the early numbers were 7 million, but I've seen them revised upwards to somewhere around 8.2 million. So
good, because that was bullshit. I knew as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's not true. It's more than that. Give me a break.
Well, you could just tell. I mean, I was in St. Pete for the last one, and it was well attended. I mean, probably one of the bigger ones we've seen, but the energy this time and the number of people, it was just orders of magnitude larger, but also just a greater sense of camaraderie. And I think what's been happening in Portland, in Chicago, in New York, in LA has awakened within people, this defiance. It's everything we talk about when we geek out on a Andor, that there's something in us that wants freedom. And in the face of these armed, masked up idiots, people are finding a level of bravery and looking out for each otherness, and I think that has infused this version of No Kings with an urgency and sense of community, and a kind of screw those guys attitude that was exactly what the doctor ordered. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, we had there were a lot of people there, obviously, and Kingston is a small city, but there are people from all over. People that I know came, and I didn't find out till after because it was impossible to see people in the context of there's too many people there. The thing that really got me and that I was not prepared for is when I went up to speak, the car horns were blasting the entire time because people were driving by and honking their horns in support. So there was this din of car horns that literally never stopped. And I'm sure that happened all over the place. So that's the thing, they didn't show this on Fox News, I'm sure, or if they did in some dumb Antifa context, but anybody that left the house for a drive on Saturday encountered this most likely because it was everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere and not see it. And that's the thing that matters. Like you're not going to show it on the news. It's too big. You can't bottle it up. It's too big. It's impossible to ignore, even though you want to. And my congressman was there, which was great because he spoke to, and the fact that we have members of Congress going to these things and participating in them is important, and which I told him after, and thanking him for coming. But and he wasn't full of shit. Like, he wanted to be there. He wasn't politicianing in that way. So that was also really nice to see it. It was a lot of it was great to just go home and watch all the videos of the people in the street. That was great, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I was trying to remember some of my favorite signs, but it was fun to see Grantifa, like a lot of the elders not backing away from there. I mean, it's important to remember all of the hysteria among Republicans in advance of this. And yet when you look across the country and globally where these protests were happening, the only arrests you saw were MAGA folks brandishing weapons, or
face planting on the sidewalk in Denver.
Oh God, yeah, I did see that one.
I might have watched it more than once. I might have watched it more than once.
Well, I also was really moved to see cities where, population 200 with people holding signs saying, it's only me, but I'm here. Because, there's that famous picture from a Hitler rally where they all are doing the Elon salute, and except one guy, right?
Yeah.
And the caption is sort of like, "Be that guy." And I get emotional when people stand up, not because of peer pressure, not because they'll be anonymous in the crowd, but because they're willing to, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. So,
yeah. And it was, I agree, and I think it's a lot of people, had anticipation or trepidation about going out, and people came anyway. And I think everybody was glad that they did. And I think I experienced that for sure, that feeling. You're just like, wow, we're not alone. We're not alone at all. Not even a little bit. Yeah.
And people are, it's not just the march. People are engaging in work. There were, people were signing up to learn nonviolent resistance strategies, to support community safety and democratic education programs, and taking the people who signed up to organize, like it's the event itself, but it's also all of the organizing pieces. And I know in both St. Pete and in Orlando, the places that I was closest to, there are just so many people who have never called themselves political, never thought of themselves as political, who are now ready to go canvas, ready to go, to do things that they'd never done before. And I think the other thing that should give us, there's some heart to be found, is that there's more polling to show that, increasingly Americans, for example, a Gallup poll from October 1st to the 16th showed that national approval of Congress has fallen to 15%, down 11 points in 1 month.
Wow.
Almost an 80% disapproval rating overall.
Mike Johnson, not popular.
Yeah, the majority of Americans, close to 60%, are disapprove of Republicans' handling of what is happening. I think Trump's approval is somewhere like in the low 40s underwater. And, people are not falling for their big lie, their big lie of repetition, where they just keep blaming anybody but themselves for the shutdown. So to everybody who took to the streets, who showed up at your No Kings rally, it matters. I hope you were as energized as we were, and I hope you take that energy and continue to apply it to the tactical work, both the frivolous, the tactical frivolity, and the earnest and important work that we must do. Any parting thoughts, Greg?
You know, my parting thought is it's always nice to see you. It's always nice to see people in the chat and be able to look over and see this great community. And we're all part of this in our way. That's one of the takeaways from Andor, because we can geek out about Andor for like 30 seconds. Is that every little part matters, everything matters. What at the end of the manifesto is, in the end, one little thing will break and it may be this White House breaking, maybe the Epstein file, maybe some little thing in the grand scheme of things is going to do it if it is done. And dictators always fall. That it's inevitable. So.
Yes. And thank you for shouting out the folks in the comments. And thank you for all the fact checking, the immediate research that you do.
We appreciate
all of that is appreciated. And I'll reveal that after the show, I always go back in to read the quotes that I wasn't, or the comments that I wasn't able to read while the show was live. But great to see you. And I see some new names in the chat.
Yeah,
and,
good. It's exciting.
And if you're new, please do take a moment to hit the subscribe button so you know not only when the 5/8.5 is going to air, but also when the mothership, the 5/8. So I'm Nadine Smith, along with Greg Olear. Thanks for making space for the 5/8.5, your midweek breather. And be sure to tune in Friday at 8 o'clock on the same channel, and you'll get to hang out with Greg again and Stephanie Koff. So take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 8 o'clock Eastern. Good night, everybody.
Good night.